Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland Brothers. Whatever it is that you want to see, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. No matter whatever that happens to be, ask the Leyland Brothers. Come on, me in and join in the fun. Travel all over Australia.
Well, once more there's been no shortage of interesting requests for our program. And this time we've got 3 interesting stories. Where to first, Mike?
First we go across to New Zealand, to the North Island, right to the very tip of Cape Reinga and follow the 90-mile beach all the way down to where it comes back onto the mainland at Kaitaia. This is a request that we had about 6 letters for, to see the 90-mile beach in New Zealand. Then we come back to Tumut in New South Wales to have a look at the Forestry Commission's pine plantations and the uses of the pine after it's chopped down. Where to then, Mal?
Well, for our final story, we film it here at Kingston, or quite near to Kingston in South Australia. We take a close-up look at one of the most interesting animals anywhere in Australia, and that's the Mallee Fowl.
We're at Cape Reinga, the northernmost tip of New Zealand. This is where the Pacific and the Tasman Oceans meet. This is going to be the starting point of a journey suggested by Mrs. C. Harris of Cronulla, New South Wales. Recently, while we were in New Zealand, we were taken on a tour in the North Island where we drove along the riverbed of the Tipaki stream and out on the 90-mile beach and for 40 miles along the edge of the surf in a tourist bus. We thought this was a wonderful experience and wondered if you could show it on your program. I don't think our family believed us when we told them of this trip. Well, Mrs. Harris, maybe they'll believe you when they've seen it on television.
Cape Reinga, according to Maori legend, is a departing place for all the Maori spirits as they leave New Zealand to return to their legendary homeland in Polynesia. We're going to travel with George and Diana Turney, who live at Kaitaia at the southern end of the beach. George and Diana operate far northern explorer expeditions. They have offered to take us ahead of the coaches so that we can film the journey Mrs. Harris asked for. The drive south from Cape Reinga takes us through undulating scrub country for the first 16 kilometres. This land is being redeveloped for Maori farmers. We leave the road that runs south down the peninsula and swing west to the only northern access to the beach along the bed of the Tipaki stream. The Star Mini Tour coaches follow us onto the Tipaki stream. Their experienced drivers manoeuvre the heavy passenger-laden coaches down the treacherous stream bed. Before the Far North Road was built along the peninsula, the beach and this stream bed were the only access to service the Cape Reinga lighthouse. The Tipaki stream cuts a winding path for 2 kilometres through the towering white sand dunes before it enters the sea.
We've just travelled 2 kilometres down the Tipaki stream, and as you can see, it's very much like quicksand. It's very dangerous to drive along if you're not used to the conditions, and it's advisable to take the coach tour. We're now going onto the beach and follow the coaches down to Waipapakara.
90 Mile Beach is renowned for its good fishing, and many private motorists use the beach as a road. That's one way of going fishing for the weekend. The pinnacle rock pierced by a hole is called Matipai Island. This rock is visible from over half the length of the beach.
Going out the window, keep it going.
90 Mile Beach is not in fact 90 miles. it is 64 miles, or just over 100 kilometres. Freak waves out of nowhere. Apart from fishing, the beach has been used for other purposes in the past. On March 25, 1933, Sir Charles Kingsford Smith and his gallant little aircraft Southern Cross were here to make an attempt at the Trans-Tasman crossing to Australia. The Southern Cross took off at dawn for Sydney, 1,700 kilometres away. The epic flight was successful, and 13 hours and 9 minutes later he landed in Australia. Today, jumbo jets fly the same distance in just over 2 hours. Before we continue down the beach, the kids stretch their legs while we boil the billy for lunch. Fires are not allowed above high water mark because the beachfront sand dunes and beyond have all been planted with pine in an attempt to make use of the barren area. We soon catch up with the tour coaches and continue our journey. There is nothing like a sing-along to end an interesting day's journey down the 90-mile beach. As we approach Waipapukara ramp at the end of the beach, we spot a fisherman using an unusual method of fishing called kontiki or balloon fishing. A large plastic bag is inflated with the aid of the breeze. The bag is connected to the end of a long line with a series of 12 hooks attached. A reasonable offshore wind will blow the bag across the surface against the incoming surf and carry the line out beyond the breakers. In due course, when the line is wound in, if you are lucky, a nice snapper will be your reward. This, then, is the 90-mile beach in New Zealand's far north, a place of ancient history and unspoiled beauty, made accessible to many by modern transport. D. Lane of Tumut, New South Wales, asks the Leyland Brothers to show the work of the Forestry Commission of New South Wales, their pine plantations and what the forests are used for. We are near Batlow in the Tumut Forestry District to show you this story. To find out a little bit about the forestry, we're going to ask Bruce Lever, the forester in charge of the Batlow area. Now Bruce, this is the start of it all, isn't it, in the nursery?
The cones are collected from our seed orchards and planted in these beds in August, September. They're raised through the summer and they're ready for planting out in the plantation areas the following winter. This is the size that goes out into the field, and they'll progress from the size you see behind you to about this size.
How long would that take?
This would take the full 12 months. A problem with transplanting seedlings is to ensure that they're hardy enough to withstand the shock of replanting. We give the seedling a better chance by employing a technique that we call root wrenching. The roots are cut below the level of the ground with knives attached to a tractor, and this promotes the lateral root growth. This is the growth you see here. This gives the plant a far better root system in the seedling stage to cope with the shock of replanting. In fact, we get 95 to 98% strike in the field.
The Forestry Commission also cultivates native trees that are planted out to form native forests like this one. Access roads to the native and pine forests are open to the public and attract thousands of visitors each year to these cool green retreats. Derelict farmland is being bought up by the Forestry Commission for pine plantation programs. In the last 25 years, 140,000 acres have been purchased for plantation purposes. Most of the land has been run down and is uneconomic for farming. Bulldozers clear the native regrowth, ready for the hand planting of Pinus radiata seedlings from the plantation nursery. 600 to 700 seedlings are planted per acre. Pine plantations yield 10 times as much timber in a given time than most of the better native forests. For this reason, the majority of the plantations are pine. The first pine plantation in New South Wales was planted in 1914 at Tuncurry on the north coast. The Commission has a target of 1 million acres of pine plantation by the year 2000. This area is only 1/2 of 1% of the total area of New South Wales. Management of all these forests is carried out by foresters. Part of their work is to decide which trees are to be felled and when.
Kerry, how do you select a tree to be taken?
Like, the basic idea of selecting trees for thinning is that we pick out the worst trees, so that after we thin, the trees that are left represent the superior part of the forest. Mike, we have to mark this tree because it's a fairly slow growing tree, and also because it is a fairly crooked tree, and the ones around it are superior to it. That's that one. The one next to it we'll mark also. It's quite a good tree, but for reasons of spacing, there are other trees being left around it. Therefore, if we take this one out, there'll be an even spacing over the area. And the cutter, when he comes along, can see that yellow paint. And when he sees the yellow paint, he knows that tree must be cut down. He's not allowed to leave it here. And therefore, we take out all the trees we want to remove by this method.
The forest is first thinned when the trees are 13 years old. Subsequent thinnings are done at intervals of 5 years. The first harvest of timber is sold to pulpwood manufacturers or for small posts and fruit cases. Subsequent cuttings, such as this bigger tree, will go to the sawmill for building timber. Most stands of pine will grow on to be 45 years old when they yield the best quality timber. Machinery has taken a lot of the back-breaking work out of the timber industry. After the cutters have felled an area, this machine, known as a forwarder, uses its mechanical arm to load the logs onto its tray for carting back over the rough ground to the access road. A waiting log truck is loaded with these logs, which are destined to become pine board. The pine board factory in Tumut holds stocks of logs for use in the manufacture of its particle board. Forest logs are sawn into shorter lengths called billets. The billets are fed into a flaking machine which reduces the wood into fine flakes. The flakes are then milled to size, dried and sifted before glue is added. This mixture is formed into a thick mattress ready for placing into the huge heat press that can press a dozen or so sheets at a time. Pine board product is used extensively in furniture manufacture and is only one of the products that Pinus radiata can be used for.
As you can see, we're in the bush, and we're on a property named Benara, and that's, well, just near Kingston in South Australia. The property here is owned by Vern McLaren. Now, Mr. McLaren has set aside about 1,000 acres of his property and left it like this, natural virgin bush. And the reason is that he's very interested in wildlife. And in this area, there's not one, but several pairs of Malleefowl, and they nest here every year. Now, we're going to take a look at the Malleefowl in answer to this request, which comes from Mr. Stephen Basford from Fern Tree Gully in Victoria. Now, the Malleefowl build mounds in the bush using the natural material. And here is one of those mounds. This is a fairly typical one. It's been in use now for several years. In fact, this one here has been in use for about 20 years. At least for about 2 years they didn't use it, but now it's back in use again. Now, the way the mound works is that the Malleefowl, in about October, comes to this, which is then like a crater in the middle, a bit like an extinct volcano from the previous year's nesting, and they scrape from around the undergrowth here all kinds of humus to use as a kind of a compost. They drop that into the bottom there, then they lay their eggs in it, and they cover it up with soil. Now, the eggs are in there at the moment and they're incubating. Now, the temperature control system is most accurate. They have to keep the temperature of those eggs within 0.5 degree Fahrenheit. And in order to do that, they keep covering and uncovering the mound with soil by scratching at it. This process is a bit of a mystery, really, although they've managed to detect the exact temperature by a sensitive device on the end of their beak. Now, if we go away into the bush a little way and settle with our cameras and watch, we'll probably be able to watch the birds come back to the mound and be able to see them in action controlling the temperature of the eggs which are incubating.
The Malleefowl is a shy bird, but because of the natural instincts of these birds to tend to the nest constantly, they won't be far away. The light scrubby trees of the mallee give natural cover, and also as this region of bushland has never suffered the interference of man to much extent, it's not even necessary to construct a camouflaged camera hide.
Well, we'll have to be fairly quiet because we're about to approach fairly closely now to the mound. The birds should have settled down and they should be back just about ready to start scratching around to control the incubation of the eggs.
My first glimpse of the bird is in the shady undergrowth, and in the short time it has taken me to make a wide circle in the bush and approach the nesting mound from a different direction, the male Malleefowl has returned to the mound and is already at the base of the mound busy scratching. This peculiar method of incubating the eggs has fascinated man ever since the habits of these mound-building birds has been known. Mound-building birds are commonly referred to as megapodes, and the group contains a fairly large number of species. Most varieties live in heavy jungle-like habitats, and some in New Guinea and the islands further north incubate their eggs by the heat of the sun or by the volcanically heated ground. The Malleefowl, however, prefers the open mallee country with its loose sandy soil and dry, light scrub. These mound builders are related to another large group of birds which includes the domestic fowl. But where the Malleefowl is so different is in the enormous patience it has with this ceaseless and seemingly untiring effort of continually covering and uncovering the mound to control the temperature of the 20 or so eggs which are buried with the rotting vegetation. This lack of direct attention to the eggs seems to relate to the way reptiles leave their eggs to hatch unattended. And birds evolved from reptiles. But actually, this strenuous task of tending the mound would be far more demanding than sitting on the eggs. It is the male which carries out the temperature control of the mound, probably because the female would be extremely exhausted after laying the 20-odd eggs, as the eggs are unusually large for a bird of this size. When the chicks are hatched, they are well advanced in their development and must make their own way through the soil to the surface of the mound. And then they're ready to fend for themselves. At this stage, the parent bird takes no further interest in the chicks or the mound until next nesting season. They eat flowers, insects, fruit and seeds, and although they can fly in a rather heavy, clumsy sort of way, they rarely do. In many parts of Australia, their habitat has been changed by farming methods, and there are few pieces of virgin bushland left. This 1,000-acre section of Mallee at Mr. McLaren's property is an isolated clump in the middle of heavily cleared grazing land. The fact that here alone there are at least 5 nesting pairs seems to emphasise the need to retain such regions as representative of the unaffected environment. Mr. McLaren says he will always leave this section untouched, and one day he may give control of it to the South Australian National Parks and Wildlife Service.
Well, Mr. Basford, I think this is one of the most fascinating experiences I've ever had, to be able to watch Malleefowl like this in the bush. And I'd like to thank you for asking it to show it to you. I think the Malleefowl is one of the most unique and fascinating animals anywhere in Australia.
Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. Travel all over the countryside, ask the Leyland Brothers. Whatever it is that you want to see, ask the Leylands, ask the Leylands. No matter whatever that happens to be, ask the Leyland Brothers. Come on, me in and then join in the fun. Travel all over Australia.